Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of Dojo Talks. It's been a little while, so we thought we would just update y'all on what's been going on at the dojo, what we've been up to. Maybe we'll talk a little bit FIDE election because that's coming up, and yeah, do a little update for this summer 2026. It's currently August, mid-August. Our last episode, I think, was about a month ago. We talked the FIDE election with Peter Heine. That was episode 200, so this should be 201. And yeah, sorry, folks. We've been busy. I've been traveling. David's been traveling. Jesse had U.S. senior champs, but now maybe we'll get a chance to recap it all. So, real quick, how have you guys been this summer?
I've been well. I haven't played much chess, just some blitz here and there. I still study all the games in the evening when the rest of the family's asleep. But yeah, I've basically spent the summer with my family. No camps for the kids, just family time, and it's been very nice, and I've enjoyed it.
What kind of chess have you been following? Who have you been watching?
I've been watching uh any tournament that makes it to 2700 chess pretty much. Like I clicked through all the games on there. So right now there's the Sinkfield Cup is live as we speak. Um there's also let's see. I There's been the Turkish Super League, right? And I don't know what the rules are of that. I only know the games, right? But it was like 14 rounds long, and very consecutive. Like a lot of the European leagues are played, one or two matches on a weekend, and then a couple weeks later, one or two matches again. So it seemed like some kind of a final stage tournament between top teams. Lots and lots of great players there, and young, scary Turkish children. So that was fun to watch, and of course, now with some sadness, I'm watching the Rubenstein Memorial as well.
Why with sadness?
My favorite player in that tournament had a heartbreaking game yesterday and today. So
No. Who are you pulling for?
Sam,
Oh, Shanky.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so you were following Turkish league. Is Dogmas he's playing there or
he played in the league. Yeah,
oh dang.
yeah,
It's our boy.
yeah. I mean, in all these tournaments, I like to follow all the top players. I also like to follow the juniors, see how our picks from last October went. And I am scouting for next for the next draft all the time. So
You
so
know
I
who's
can't
doing
tell I,
great is
I can't tell you who's been doing well or badly, but
I can tell you your pick
okay.
Vodana is doing amazing. I think she's up like 150 points.
Bodana had a great result recently. She set a new record for youngest British champion ever. Um, but what really broke my mind, Kostya, was that she only broke the record by like a few months. Like the previous record was like a 12-year-old. I thought, you know, I thought that we were in a new age of child prodigies, and that the youngest previous British champion would have probably been, 17 or 18 or something, right? But
Hmm. But the previous, right? I mean, that was like David Howell or McShane or who, like,
oh no, for the British Women's Championship, the previous record I saw in the article was like a 12-year-old girl,
oh,
sometime previously, right? So she broke the record by some months, and I mean, amazing result for her, for sure. But it didn't break the record by like 6 years or anything, as I imagined when I look at her age. But then when you think about it, I mean, Irina Krush won the U.S. Women's Championships at a similar age, so and that was 20 years ago. So I suppose there have been child prodigies for a while in
Yeah.
chess.
She broke this other record recently. She was at this French tournament. I was at the Dole Open, and
Hmm.
there after beating Maruizzi, I
Yeah.
think she became the youngest female to defeat a 2600 grandmaster,
Yeah. Hmm.
breaking Judith's record.
Yep.
So that one felt big.
Yeah, her list of records is like really, really long because at the end of the British Championship news article that I saw, they're like, of course, she's broken many records before. Here are some. And they had a full paragraph, and it was not by any means all of them, right? It was like, here's, 20 most relevant records out of, 80 or 100. But yeah, I mean, Maurizzi is a very, very strong player, right? Like peak, age, fitness, strength, everything. So that on its own was an incredible
Yeah.
game and
Though if
result.
you saw that game, you would see that he was actually doing quite well. He was
Yeah.
outplaying her and then
Yep.
basically played a move very quickly and blundered, and then
Yeah.
she caught it and then won a nice game from there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I saw the game. I do watch all the I watched your games from the Dole Open too.
oh,
And I
hard
watched
to hear.
Jesse's games from the senior championships.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, well, cool. Speaking of, how did it go this time around, Jesse?
So yeah, last several months I've been on like the senior tour. And playing in St. Louis, it's a beautiful thing. The club is now remodeled. It's absolutely stunning. I've never been in any kind of physical space like it. The tournament, of course, is a real joy to play. And it's honestly a little bit like, well, here's an experience I'm sure everybody's had out there. You watch some movie that's just amazing, right? You watch some movie that's just amazing. And then after it's over, you're kind of jonesing and you're like, damn, I gotta get that back, and you start like scrolling on Netflix or whatever, and then you end up watching some crud and you're just like, this is terrible. How did this happen to me? How
Hmm.
did this terrible experience happen to me? And so it's a little bit like that with playing in St. Louis. You're just like, holy crud, this is such an amazing event. So imagine, just to paint a picture, this beautiful set of rooms downstairs where you can go analyze your games, and then all the games are played upstairs. Same rooms where now the Singfield Cup is taking place. And, there's coffee and treats and whatever you might want to eat. If you want to take a break, you can lay down on a couch and watch your game from the couch. It's one round a day. And instead of me going off and playing 2 rounds a day against small Asian children, I'm playing legendary GMs that are fun to talk to. And then I have like a cool post-mortem with afterwards, right? And then maybe we'll go out to dinner and shoot the shit. So it's just a beautiful chess experience with it's like an arrival day, dude, rest day, 1 round a day, final ceremony, that kind of thing. So just like an amazing chess experience. Um, I thought I didn't play badly, but I really missed some key chances. Um, the miss of us, yeah, a couple games I really missed some key chances, which would
The
have
Kaidanov game was
Kaidanov game. I missed
big one.
Novikov game, the Fishbein game. So all these chances I missed. But I still finished middle of the pack, so it wasn't
Mhm.
terrible. And then really but still like I had, of course, higher hopes.
Hmm.
And then I played the Irwin and I should have won that thing. And I took second place there, and that really hurt me. So, anyways, I had been training for months and months and months for my grand senior tour. And the too long the TLDR of it is I played reasonably well, and if I just won that Irwin thing, the whole thing would have felt a lot better. But in the end, I felt like it wasn't quite what I wanted. And now I'm jonesy because now it's just tournaments with little Asian kids 2 rounds a day, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I
Hmm.
don't
Yeah, you got to come play in Europe. I mean, that's where that's
know.
the 2 rounds. But I mean, I feel like you had started off well,
Mhm.
and also if I remember, like going into the thing, you were like one of the lowest rated players in the field.
Oh yeah, yeah, no. I mean, all these guys, well, not all of them, but most of them are overrated. So it's like, or rather out of practice
Right.
and out of shape. So it's like, the rating doesn't mean that much.
No, so
And
that's what I was
Fishbein won
wondering.
it
Yeah,
being the
like
lowest rated before, and he did well again this time around.
right, right. Yeah. So I was wondering if it was the same because that seems to be the story every year. It's like the guys that are like playing a little bit more frequently are the ones that end up actually doing well in the tournament, regardless of the ratings.
Right. Though now Onishuk has come back, and I think it's well, not come back, but he aged in,
He
not
aged
aged out, he
in.
aged in. And so that makes it a lot more competitive. And I don't know how much he's studying, but he's still a pretty good competitor. So you're dealing with legends, whether they're out of shape or not. These are still very competent players with a lot of chess knowledge.
Yeah.
And so
Maybe
the
Jesse.
Irwin, I assume you had to get first to qualify for next year.
Right. And there's still some, I don't know, there's some murky stuff going on. There might be a backdoor in there with me because the top guy, I don't know if he actually is eligible. So I don't know. Still, that's a rules committee thing. Actually, we'll talk politics a little later.
Yeah.
That's a whole political thing. I don't have any control over that kind of thing.
Jesse, maybe you should ask St. Louis to organize an occasional, just random round robin for old people.
Maybe, but St. Louis really has it, they've kind of got it dialed in. They've got a
Yeah.
lot of events.
Hmm.
Um, and, the one actually that the senior people really would like to see is a 65 plus group where, it is a big difference between 50 and, 65 plus.
Oh,
The
yeah.
amount of brain loss that goes on there on a competitive level, even if you don't notice it, um, is real. So that's the one that people are pushing St. Louis for. And I should mention, this year was the first time they had the women's senior,
Right.
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. So they are adding events
Yeah.
for sure. And the women's senior was interesting because there was some of these women had played for years, and they suddenly came back. um, there was this woman who apparently was back in the day this hottie, and she helped inspire Tevis. She was a figure for Tevis writing the Queen's Gambit. So I was like,
Wow.
oh yeah, they're coming back.
Uh-huh.
They're coming back.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Cool.
was cool to see. A lot of the players in the women's seniors, like I basically just never heard of. Like I never saw
Right.
them play or saw them anywhere.
Hmm.
But it was cool to see all these like, I imagine they just have like professional jobs and they just came out and like decided to like play a tournament. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
So, dude, tell us about you. I've followed some of your events, but honestly, it was hard because it seemed like you just had a whole months and months of traveling around. So, give us the whole spiel.
Yeah, this latest one, I guess I was in Europe for a full month. Two tournaments that I played. The
Uh-huh.
first in France and then the second in Greece. And then this last week, I was commentating at
Mm.
the Esports World Cup, which was definitely a very, very interesting, very illuminating experience. So that was fun. I actually started my trip in Romania in Bucharest. So the first thing I did to get over the jet lag, I had this. It was a multi-day event by this new company called ChessFam. Maybe
Uh-huh.
you guys have heard of it, but our friend Matt Hausline, he's very
Right.
much involved in that. And they're basically, in their words, they're trying to be like the booking.com of chess tournaments. So they're
Uh-huh.
trying to build a site to make it like easy for players to follow or like to to find tournaments and then join them, like book hotels and travel and all that stuff. It's not an ad. It's a good idea because it's like it's actually not that easy to find tournaments. Like I played this very nice tournament in France, the Dole Open,
Yeah.
which is in Aix-en-Provence. David, you'll have to do the pronunciation for.
That's
Mm.
that's fine. Good enough.
Thank you so much. Um, Merci beaucoup. And then everyone was asking me like, "Oh, how did you hear about this tournament?" You know, because like they wanted because it was a very strong tournament. It was very
Hmm.
diverse. And then people were asking me like, "How did you even hear about it?" And the way I heard about it was because it happened last year. And then I was like, "Oh, I wish I could play that event." And then I had to wait a whole year to go and play it. So it's like not easy to find tournaments that are suitable for you. Like, for some people they're looking for norm events, some people are looking for something that's like a family friendly tournament or a tournament that's on
Hmm.
a beach, like more vacation tournament. So anyway, Chess Fam, they did this kind of like panel thing, or it was like a multi-day conference. There was a bunch of panels, and so I was on one of them for like chess education and things like that. The whole panel was about mostly about how to connect creators with federations, which I thought was a very interesting angle because right now it seems like chess federations, they don't really work with creators so much, and they really should, because that would be a great way to kind of get a lot of new people into chess. But the most interesting thing about this conference was that it was held side by side with the European chess elections that kind of preceded the FIDE elections.
Hmm.
And so, because the ECU elections were happening there, a bunch of the FIDE delegates that are going to be voting at the Olympiad were also there. And because the delegates were there, I believe, actually, no, all three of the candidates for the FIDE election actually showed up to this event at some point.
Wow.
So I saw both Vadim Rosenstein and Jan-Henrik Butner there. And then the next day, the day I had left, apparently Dvorkovich had shown up for the actual day of the ECU election.
So they know about these events.
They know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think that was kind of the point of the conference, was to hold it side by side to the election, so that there would be a lot of people that would be, a lot of important Federation people definitely interested in attending both events. And that was really interesting for me to see some of like the behind the scenes stuff. Because like, we're all in like this one hotel, especially like the last night I was there is kind of surreal, because it's like there's all these delegates just like hanging out. And then you could see the candidates just kind of floating around from one to the other, like trying to like strike up a chat, like take them aside, talk to them for a bit. So it's just cool to see a little bit of the behind the scenes, like how it actually all works.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was an interesting start to the trip. Then I played these two tournaments. So first one was in France, the Dole Open. Really, really nice event. 1 round per day. The conditions were excellent. It was actually held in a casino, which I'm used to because I played in Vegas a bunch of times. But
Yeah.
for Europe, that's like not the most typical thing. And it is sponsored by the company Dole. So a lot of people are like wondering where so it's like the the fruit company is sponsoring the event, which I don't know how it happened, but for a couple of the rounds, everyone got a piece of fruit at their board. So there was a banana day, which was fun, and then there was an apple day where everyone got an apple. And that tournament went okay for me. I think rating wise, ended up either breaking even or like losing a point or two. But yeah, ultimately it was okay. I feel like I was pretty out of practice going into the first event, so I had less expectations for the first one, and I feel like I started playing better for my second tournament, which was in Kavala. Which I was wondering, have either of you guys played any of the Greek Opens?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. It's like Kavala, I think, has been around for a while. I think it's like their 35th year. And then there was another tournament afterwards in Thessaloniki that I didn't go play, but um, yeah, so that tournament was very nice. I'd never been to Greece before, so it was my first time. So Greece was very cool. Kavala is like up in the north, and I think actually very close to Bulgaria in terms of the border. I did not know that Greece bordered Bulgaria, so I learned that one. And yeah, that was a very cool tournament. Like it's on the beach. Kavala is like very nice, very cheap. Not that touristy compared to other parts of Greece. I think tourists don't know about it too much, but that was a super enjoyable time. The round is I think it was like at 5 p.m. daily. So you had all day to kind of hang out, go to the beach and uh, do whatever. And then that one went a little bit better for me. I think I maybe gained a couple rating points there. nothing special, but I feel like I had some decent games.
Cool.
Well, Kostya, I think before we head to chess politics, people would be interested. How does this summer um, affect or your thinking on the quest of the Grand GM quest?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's tough. I mean, like I still enjoy playing very much, and then while I'm at the tournaments, I'm preparing a lot and like taking the tournaments pretty seriously. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I definitely felt like I hadn't been training enough, which I think
Mhm.
is really necessary, especially like this day and age. Anyone that's playing like these big classical tournaments is like a killer. Everyone's just trying to like really, really hard. So a lot of people are like underrated, and so yeah, it's like just to maintain your rating is super, super tough. So I'm still motivated. I'm still dreaming about the GM title. But yeah, no, clearly I have to kind of work more if I, actually have a chance to get there.
Mhm.
So
So
when
right.
you
Mhm.
arrived at these tournaments, you already felt like I haven't been putting in the work recently where I am about to score GM norms.
Yeah, for sure.
That wasn't kind of like an expectation or a feeling that you had.
Yeah, I mean that hasn't really been an expectation in a long time. Like I rarely go into a tournament thinking like, oh, I'm definitely going to get the 2600 performance.
Yeah.
And so this time I wasn't too different. It was more just like I just wanted to get some good games in and try to improve from there. Like I don't think these will be my last tournaments ever. So for me, it's just kind of giving me more material to work with. But also, it's like I was trying to do different things at this tournament. Like the last time I played was back in May, and after that tournament, I had some goals in terms of like how I want to approach like the game, like choosing openings, how I want to like play the game, what kind of positions I want to get into, and then like what I'm working on specifically with my play. Things like calculation and technique and that kind of stuff. Like a big one for me was to try and spend more time during my games, and to try to be like a lot more precise when it comes to lines and like looking at like the opponent's ideas. And so I think I, showed some improvement there. But yeah, ultimately I wasn't really counting on doing extremely well. Um, but yeah, you never know. I mean, sometimes it feels like a shift in mindset can be very, very helpful. Like the same player can have one bad tournament and then have like a really good tournament just because they're approaching the game a little bit differently. They're like willing to take more risk or less risk or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So yeah, now I have a lot more to work on. I don't have any more tournaments planned for the next couple months. I'm gonna try to like bunker down and like train a bit more
Mhm.
this fall. I think the next time I might play might be like November, December,
Mhm.
in terms of like serious tournaments. Probably play locally. Like here we have like small events in St. Louis, like all the time. Um, but yeah, I'm also thinking a lot about like how chess might be changing in the future, and so that's
Mhm.
another thing. So, that kind of ties in with like the esports World Cup because, of course, that's like a completely different format to classical chess. But also, I don't know if you guys have been following like lately, FIDE, they've been kind of flirting with like the shortening of classical time controls.
Hmm.
Like they announced they'd be piloting like a 45-minute time control. And then like at first they were saying that it would like only be for amateurs or something along those lines. But I think now they started to say like, no, they want this to affect like your classical rating. And eventually I think that means that like you'll be able to get norms from like 45-minute tournaments. Or at least I feel like that's kind of the direction that they're starting to
Yeah.
to push. Um,
Yeah, I feel that coming too.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer for me. I feel like if they change the system so dramatically, I feel like a lot of people would agree that like the title, is just going to start to matter a little bit less,
Mhm.
if you get it with these shorter time
Yeah.
controls.
It's
Um,
definitely going to be different, right? Like it might change who gets it. I don't know if like a lot more people will get it. Like I don't know if it'll change the volume a lot, but it might change ratings. It might sort of bias things more quickly in favor of young players. And, um, I mean, like, okay, so there's a bigger contrast between Blitz and classical than between rapid and classical, right? But in general, when I've like what I've done to improve my blitz is I'm sort of playing completely differently than how I play classical. I'm not trying to find best moves or create something. There's a lot more just kind of hanging in there and not rocking the boat and playing okay moves
Mm.
quickly, and it's kind of like a totally different enterprise. Um, and so you might, I mean, at some point, if classical is 45 minutes, you might see things a little bit more in that direction, right? Where people are even less carrying out big plans or trying to get an advantage out of the opening, or versus just sitting around trying to get ahead on the clock, um, pouncing on mistakes. I don't know. It could change a lot because 45 minutes is a big difference.
Yeah. Speaking of, actually, we can come back to the 45-minute thing. David, you hit your Blitz peak recently. So that's something you,
Yeah. I mean, a year ago, we did this like quest, and it was like, could I ever get to 2600, which
right?
seemed doubtful. And yeah, away from the limelight, this weird thing happened when I arrived in Europe this summer. I was playing a few Blitz games um, while we were on vacation. And it wasn't the day I arrived. It was like a week after we arrived. I started winning every game I played. And I wasn't trying to win them. I was just trying to keep the position equal, and do nothing, just complete nothing. I know there are some people who've always played classical chess that way. So when I say like I'm playing Blitz completely differently than classical, I mean, okay, maybe it's me personally and maybe it's age and stuff like that. Maybe other people play Blitz and classical more similarly. But, I stopped like putting myself in positions where I have to find lots of really good moves to try to win the game. Instead, I'm just in positions where like, I can keep the game going. And then I just get to equal end games and then I win them. And I would say like sometimes I look through games that I've won. I'll look through like 20 games and I'll say, wow, like 18 of these games, like I could not have beat a 2200 in this end game if they had time on the clock. I mean, if you think classical ratings, not like the online Blitz ratings, right? So in Blitz, I was 2600 playing people generally 150 to 200 points lower than me. Um, and I mostly only play people 150 to 200 points lower than me, by the way, because I do a seek plus or minus 200 points, and the only people who want to play me are people who are like almost at the bottom of the range. But I look at these games, I'm like, every one of these games, if you had a 30-second increment and 2 or 3 minutes on the clock, like nobody's ever going to lose these positions to me. But I just won every single one of them. And yeah, I would win like 10 games and then draw one and then win 6 games and then lose one and then win 10. But I quickly went from 2600 to, I don't know, 2730 or something like that. So
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
I broke 2700 without ever planning to or trying.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Kosi must have been stalking you to find that out. Look at that. You weren't even going to tell us, David. He had to stalk you to find that out.
It's a huge jump. No,
Yeah.
I think David messaged that. I mean, that's how I know. I remember a Discord message at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah. There was one day where I'd won like 10 games in a row or something, and I sent you guys a screenshot, I think.
Nice. Yep.
And then I had, but that wasn't even the peak, Then I had like more good days. I was like, I'm not going to send them a screenshot every day. Just
Mhm.
like,
Wow.
So on the other end of the spectrum, on the other end of like, let's say online spectrum, one thing that happened this summer that was very interesting from my perspective on both chess and the dojo is we had this camp, and it was just a small camp. We had it on the Eastern Shore dojo camp. And what it kind of turned me on to is like when I was thinking about, like the training program, we started that in 22. Part of my motivation there was so excited about it, and I still am excited about it, is instead of people having to like pay me to be their coach, I can basically put everything out there. We can put everything out there. And then, a much cheaper path is then for them just to follow the training program. Right. And then, that's been going on for years. And Jack has helped us build a beautiful website around it. But the camp is really interesting because kind of like before the camp, January, we started doing the live classes. And what's been really cool and interesting is these players of varying levels, some absolute beginners, are getting to know each other personally. And when we started the training program, we were kind of hoping like people are going to connect. And it was actually one of the things that was hardest about the training program because many people weren't connecting. And like myself as an introvert, I think I would have found it very difficult to connect with people too. But then with these group classes and the workshops and the game and review, people were meeting each other and they kind of wanted, they were like the ones like, hey, Jesse, we got to do a camp. And so we set this thing up and it was just a really beautiful experience. And not just for chess, like I enjoyed meeting the people and they really were into meeting each other. And I was like, oh, I'm witnessing like real friendships being born here. This is amazing. So it's kind of an interesting evolution where the training program in a lot of ways is somebody kind of like when you're playing Blitz, you're hidden behind a screen. And you play OTB, you're right there. And so this evolution with the dojo is kind of like we started behind the screen, kind of faceless. And now, at least for a large segment of our population, it's turning into something far more personal and relatable. Um, so I don't know that to me was kind of an evolution in the summer too.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of a shared dream of ours for a little bit to do like more OTB kind of camps and meetups and
Hmm.
things like this. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I imagine you guys like went to some chess camps when you were younger.
Uh-huh.
And
Um, I went to one chess camp in my life as an instructor, not as a student. So I've never
I
been to
went to
one as
one
a
chess
student.
camp as a kid, but I will say it was very formative. It was very formative. The one camp I got to go to. Yeah.
so it's fun, right? Yeah, I remember like I went to a couple of camps, a couple sessions of like the US Chess School by Greg Shahidi.
Hmm.
And
Right.
yeah, I remember every time after that camp was over, I mean, it would be 5 days of hardcore training and working
Hmm.
with all these like top juniors and like strong coaches. And then at the end of it, you just feel so motivated because you're like, oh, I just want to like get so much better. So it's like, yeah, it's like you don't just get better at the camp, but it also kind of gives you a boost later on, which I think is super
Mhm.
cool.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, and actually, I should
yeah.
mention when you said camp, I was of course thinking about a camp where you go sleep away. But the predecessor to Greg's U.S. Chess School was the Medness camps that used to be held at the Marshall, and I went to those twice, and that was amazing. And I think anytime but really, what that was is you were meeting your peers and you
Mhm.
kind of giving a competitive sense of who they were and socially. And the dojo camp, right? Older people, adults, but it was like, oh yeah, they wanted to see their peers in the same way and see what
Yeah.
their struggle was like.
So we'll definitely try to do more of those, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to be able to set up and have all these tools available online, right? And it's like it's really great that there is all this stuff available, but of course it's always better in person, right? Like it's always
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
fun to go to an actual, chess tournament or chess camp or,
Hmm.
meet chess players face to face, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice. Um, so yeah, okay, we were talking about this 45-minute thing. So that those changes, they scare me a little bit. I feel like I'm kind of racing against the clock in a way to
Hmm.
try and get a norm or two before the
Yeah.
45-minute tournaments take over.
Now, there
Uh,
might still be 90-minute tournaments even when there are 45-minute tournaments, right? Like they'll introduce it.
yeah,
It'll be a relevant pathway for other people, but I don't think they'll immediately abolish the 90 plus 30s, right?
right.
So I don't know how pressed you should feel on that clock, right? Like when they replaced 40 and 2 with 90 plus 30, for a long time you could still find 40 plus 2 tournaments as well, right? There was a long period of overlap. Um,
Yeah.
And also, I am old enough that I remember the huge push in the 90s, early 90s, that Action Chess had, which was
Yeah.
30 minutes. And 30 minutes, my friends, is not much different than 45. And that just fizzled. No one cared. No one cared about your Action Chess. And I think I'm less worried, Kostya. I'm less worried about that one.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I agree it won't be like a sudden change, maybe more of a gradual thing. Like we slowly kind of drip down to the 90 plus 30 being as like a
Mm-hmm.
standard
Yeah.
classical time control. But I can see a lot of organizers jumping at the chance to run 45-minute events because
Oh,
then,
yeah.
they could do like 3 rounds per day, right? You can have
Yeah. They can do a
9 round
norm
tournaments
tournament on a long weekend.
right over 3 days. Yeah, exactly. Which yeah, feels a bit volatile. You also have this Total Chess World Championship thing coming up. I think later this year they're gonna do, I think maybe the pilot event or the first event or
Mm.
something. And yeah, their plan is to do 45-minute chess as their like kind of classical portion, in addition to like Blitz and Rapid. Um,
What I think, I've said this for a while, but I'm always surprised that chess.com hasn't done more to legitimize blitz players. And what do I mean? So like, the most you can do playing online blitz is like playing a Title Tuesday event. Maybe there's some other fancy blitz events you can play in, but there's no legitimacy of like a title or a path where you're like, oh, this is a goal, right?
well,
You're just a player.
speaking of, I think that might be one of the ideas behind, chess.com backing the EWC, the Esports World Cup. So I
Hmm.
think that actually, I was thinking about this a lot. I think that's like a really interesting way for them to try and take blitz chess off up on the radar. So the time control for that one is 10 plus 0.
Uh-huh.
And that was a time control throughout the event. So it's like officially rapid, but that's kind of the fastest rapid you can have before going into blitz. So it's kind of like a blitz rapid time control.
Hmm.
And for anyone who doesn't know about the EWC, so basically this is the world championship for video games. So any video game that's an esport, things like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, Rocket League. I think there was a total of 25 games at this thing, with chess being one of the games. So
Hmm.
each of these individual esports has like their own world championship and their tournaments, but as a whole, the esports World Cup, it's like their Olympics. And the way it works is kind of cool. Like, so basically, it's all about the teams, the esports teams. And so there's different teams. They got funny names like Team Liquid, Team Falcons, all kind of random stuff. They're from all over the world. There's like teams that are funded by India, teams that are funded by China. There's like North American teams, European teams. And for them, these teams, they basically send players to different games. And so how it works is whoever's team does the best across all the games collectively, they end up becoming like the esports world champions essentially. So it's like a combination of everything. And so chess is like one event, right? And so for chess, it's like they had some kind of massive prize fund for their event only. I think Magnus ended up winning like 200 or $250,000 for first place, and anyone that got, I think, in the top 16 was earning like at least 50K, and if you finish in the top 8, you're earning at least 100K. And so I definitely see that event as being like the unofficial kind of world championship for online blitz, because the way you get into the EWC is either you do really well in Title Tuesdays, or you win one of chess.com's like speed chess championship events, or they have this thing called like chess.com open. So there's like different qualification paths, but they're all online. And so we did see a couple of like basically online specialists, like this kid Sina Movahead. He was in the tournament. Right, in classical chess, he's still very far off from the elite, but in terms of online chess, he's like already one of the world's best players. So he was able to get in and qualify. And there's other like players that we would consider more online players, and they're able to get in. And so I don't think anyone considers this for chess to be some kind of world championship, but it is a way for chess.com to kind of circumvent FIDE, in the sense that they attach chess to this incredibly important event in esports, where their chess has a big part, and then it's like a huge prize fund for chess as well. There's all these events kind of leading up to the qualification of the EWC. So they've essentially just kind of built their own world championship circuit, but for online blitz. And yeah, I think it's like a totally separate thing from classical chess. But of course, this year, a lot of the players did have to choose because this event was conflicting with the Grand Chess Tour, with Sinkfield Cup happening right now. And so there's a couple of players that decided to play GCT over the EWC. And there's a couple of players, I think the most notable one was Firouzja, who dropped out of the GCT in order to play the EWC. So now there is starting to be a bit of, competition, right, between these like two tracks. And I would think if you're like a young player and you're like really good at online blitz, it might actually not be that obvious like which kind of chess you should be focusing on, whether you should be focusing exclusively on classical or if you should be spending your time kind of improving your online skills, because clearly there's going to be a lot of tournaments available there.
And you have the Fisher random track too. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's also freestyle, right, as an alternative track. And then within, freestyle, it's not clear if they want to do classical or rapid and blitz. But yeah, so it's a bit funny. Of course, FIDE, they have the lock on the world championship. Like legally, no one else can run like a chess world championship. But I just think it's kind of an interesting way that they've essentially created this very elite, very prestigious online event without having to deal or bother with FIDE whatsoever.
Well, maybe that's our transition to talk about this FIDE elections then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just like last point I wanted to make on that. Actually, let me just say the event itself, by the way, was very, very cool. It was very fun to commentate in person. This is one of those events where you have a live audience. So the players are playing with like these very heavy, like noise canceling headphones. And a lot of people they criticize the event because like they're there in person. Why don't they just play OTB? Because they're playing on computers in front of each other, which I think is fine. I think online chess is kind of a different beast. But also, you actually could have the players play in person. Like when two players are playing OTB, you're still going to broadcast the game with the 2D board. So from the fan point of view, it actually doesn't make a huge difference whether they're playing on computers or playing OTB and then the game is being relayed. So I think that's actually kind of very minor criticism. I think they actually could be playing OTB and it would basically be the same thing.
It wouldn't necessarily change any of the fan experience. So
Yeah.
why? Yeah. So when the fans say, why don't you just use a board? It's like, well, why do you personally even care? It's sort of up to the players if they prefer a mouse or a chess piece.
Yeah. And there's definitely advantages of both. I think most people don't want to see mouse slips or like disconnections. Hikaru and Firouzja, they had a very controversial thing because they had like some tech issues, and Firouzja ended up walking out of that match. But the last thing I wanted to say was actually, it gave me a lot to think about in terms of the fan experience, watching games live, watching people in person, the rapid aspect of it. It like really gives people a lot to cheer for. And I've rarely seen chess be as exciting as it was at this event. Like the stage for chess was completely sold out, especially for the finals. There's like a bunch of people like just standing and watching it live. So there's clearly a ton of like live interest. The views for the event, I think, were very, very good. But yeah, it may be a bit sad to think like most classical tournaments, there's like very few moments that fans can actually latch onto and cheer. And it's like maybe the end of the tournament, we might get a winner. But until then, it's just like 7, 8, 9 days of like not that much really happening. And for a lot of events, especially in classical, sometimes the winner is decided a couple of days before the event is even over. Like we saw in the candidates, that one was over, basically before the final few days. And then in terms of the game itself, I've been really thinking about like this 30-second increment that we've latched ourselves with. And for me, I think I'm completely convinced now that like the 30-second increment just kills all of the excitement for a fan. Because like a game could be basically over and then you still have to watch it for another like an hour before it actually ends.
Hmm.
And so it just like totally takes all the drama and excitement out of actually watching the game, which is a
Hmm.
bit of a bummer. Now, I don't think that means we should just be playing without increment, but I think there's a very, very nice, sensible in between where you just give the players some kind of small increment, like 5 or 10 seconds, and then it's
Hmm.
much more interesting than watching like these end games drag on with the 30 seconds.
Hmm.
But
Time that's neither the time for flagging nor the time for thinking.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Ta-
yeah, it's always just kind of a bummer, I think, to like watch those things play out. So that's given me a lot to think about. I'm not saying we should be changing classical chess or anything like that. All I'm convinced of is that there's a very separate audience for the esports thing, and maybe that audience will never mix with the classical audience, but
Mhm.
um, I don't think it has to necessarily. I
No,
think
it
chess
doesn't
is
have
big
to.
enough where we can have multiple kinds of events, and fans will be interested in whatever they want to be.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about like the audience, like the feeling, the atmosphere, like how many people were there, how loud were they? You were commentating. Could you hear them? Did it interfere with being able to hear co-commentators and
So for me, I was on, let's say, the second stage. So there was like an A stream and a B
Mhm.
stream because there's a lot of matches going on. So the A stream, they would usually cover the more high profile matches, and the B stream, we would cover just everything else. But we still got some very interesting matches on our, like I got to cover a match between Hans Niemann and Nepo, which was very, very exciting. Um, and yeah, no, it was fun. At some points, yeah, you could definitely hear the audience cheering, especially when someone wins a game. You know, they're playing these like multiple game matches. People brought like signs, right? So it's like any kind of sporting event. People have signs. They have like drums. Honestly, it wasn't anything compared to like some of the other games whose fans. There was one game. Think it was just one of the shooter games. I think it was Rainbow Six Siege, and one of the teams has a Brazilian fan base, and the Brazilian fans are known to bring these like massive drums that are so loud that basically we could hear them from our stage. Like they're on a completely different part of the this huge venue, but we could hear these like fans banging on their drums the whole time while we're giving commentary. So very, very fun actually to be in such an environment.
Mhm. Cool.
Um, okay, so yeah, that's my spiel on EWC. I think that's a very, very interesting event that chess is possibly going to be a part of more in the future. We'll have to kind of see, but clearly I think they're kind of building around it. Um, but yeah, in the classical chess world, we got this FIDE election coming up. I guess the big update since our last episode was that Arkady Dvorkovich, the incumbent, was basically forced to drop out of the race because he got hit with some new sanctions, and which effectively make it very hard for him to to run. I don't actually know why he had to drop out. Like, I feel like he could have just stayed in the race and he'd probably still get all the delegate votes. Like, I don't really see what difference it makes.
Yeah, I imagine he would have still won.
Yeah, so I don't
Maybe.
know exactly why this like sanction thing is so important to people in terms of the voting, but it seems to, I mean, like 2 days before he was sanctioned, he was saying like, yeah, I want to run FIDE, for as long as I can, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden he's dropping out.
But he had said in advance, if I'm on the sanction list, I will
Right.
like give up my spot. So,
Yeah.
Right. I think you're really compromised in your ability to do things once you're on a sanctions list. So it's a little bit, yeah, your hands are tied already if you're trying to be sanctioned and be this FIDE president at the same time. Plus,
Because
let's just remember it was already very controversial because he said that he wasn't going to run a third time, and then here he was doing it, you know.
yeah, no, I mean he was the one that proposed term limits in the first place.
Right.
yeah.
Um, but okay, I mean, it seems like they announced that Vichy is stepping in as like the interim president, but by all accounts, it seems like Dvorkovich is still running things behind the
Mm,
scenes.
okay.
Um,
Really?
I mean that I feel like I saw some post just on Twitter, like it's like Dorkovich, he was saying like, he was attending some FIDE meetings and they're like strategizing for the future. So like
Mhm.
clearly he's still involved in kind of planning and figuring stuff out. But anyway, he dropped out, and so his uh new vice president, Timur Turlov from Kazakhstan, then joined the race as a candidate. And now he's kind of sitting as like the de facto, let's say, establishment candidate, if we can call him that.
Yeah. And Anand, who was supposed to leave, has become acting president as well as returning on the Turlov ticket now that there's space. He's the vice president on Turlov's ticket.
Right. Which was, yeah, interesting.
So to just summarize, before it was a battle of three billionaires, and now it is again a battle of three billionaires.
Yeah.
Uh, and what's
I
weird
think
about this dude is like,
I think there's a fourth billionaire
there
because
might be a
one of
fourth.
the tickets, the president and vice president, are both billionaires.
But I think at the moment, in terms of the front runners, we have
Yeah.
Vadim Rosenstein, we got Butner, and then we got this Turloff dude as the confirmed favorites, I guess, at the moment.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, and just to recap, one of the crazy things about this election is it's all under the table because you have one country, one vote, so it's very hard to predict and votes can clearly be bought. Some people were mad at our last time. They were like, "What do you mean corruption? Can you give us some examples?" And in a way, I thought that was fair, but the problem with the corruption is like I can't trace how these countries actually did the money, but it's clear that the motivation is so strong to give them something to get the vote. And we know it's been going on in FIFA, the same system. So I guess I had to disappoint and I was like, okay, I don't have that much empirical evidence, but over the years, like it's looked really bad from the beginning. And even this thing with Turloff doesn't look great the way it's just shaping up, but there it is coming up forward. Let me actually frame it in this way. I want to ask you guys. My sense, and I was just so at that second senior tournament, it was held concurrently with the US Open. They have all their chess politics going on there.
Mhm.
And a take that I had several years ago that made several friends of mine in the US chess world really pissed. In fact, I would say we said a lot of things on this, and I would think we would have said more things after 200 episodes that got somebody really pissed. But what really
Yeah.
pissed them off was that I said it most loudly, but I think you guys echoed it a little bit, that the USCF doesn't do that much
Mhm.
and they were infuriated with me and they I there's a guy there. I shook his hand and he was like reluctant still that was years ago we did that podcast.
Oh no.
So it really pissed people off, but I bring it up in the context of the FIDE elections because it's from an outsider's perspective, it's a similar thing where it doesn't seem that FIDE does that much. I think clearly FIDE does more than US chess because US chess has delegated, let's say, its junior event to St. Louis. It's delegated its senior event, its championship event. So those tournaments are all given to St. Louis. And really, US chess is mostly, doing they like to think they're doing a lot, say, with regulations and dealing with that. And then they're doing the rating system. Okay. FIDE has a little bit more interest because when we talk about these competing versions of what chess is, the way FIDE structures the world championship, I think, does influence the world of chess, right?
Mhm.
They had this huge fight with Butner about whether the freestyle could be called a world championship.
Mhm.
That raised his ire, and I think that's the main reason that he's like coming into this race. And then you have different versions, like this Turloff guy really wants to bring the digital aspect of chess more to the front, right? So that would be in line with, I think, a lot of chess.com's goals. So there is like some influence, though ultimately I kind of feel like I think there's less power than they think there is in an organization like that. I have more to say about let you guys talk for a second.
I mean, I watched this interview that Kostya sent of Turlov, and he was saying like it's not really the job of FIDE to be like so big and important and doing so much. Like to some extent, FIDE should be supporting and assisting national federations
Hmm.
in there, but that the national federations should be doing important programs in their own countries. Um, so that is a perspective. Like, what more would you want FIDE or USCF, et cetera, or national federation? Like, what do you think the roles are of these organizations and how much do you want them doing, right? Like, sometimes when you try and do too much, you end up just interfering and not actually helping, right? Like, you're in charge of regulations for sure, right? But then do you want them organizing the US championships, or is it good if someone like St. Louis does it, right? Ditto for other
Mm.
countries, right? Should
Yeah.
the national federation be organizing the tournaments, or should some local organizers do it and then the national federation says cool, and how can we help you?
So one, interesting thought I had. So I had dinner with some bigwigs there, kind of by chance. And, talking to them, there's two things that I thought were interesting about their perspective on like what they hope to achieve. And a big one that I think is true for FIDE as well is you have the dream of getting some kind of immense corporate sponsorship. And
Mhm.
then through that corporate sponsorship, you have a dream of pushing all kinds of programs that you can dream up. And what's interesting about that dream is you just look historically, and there's been very few corporate sponsorships for US chess ever.
Right.
And part of it has been because US chess has done some unseemly stuff. And if you're a company, you don't want to be associated with it. But I was thinking about it, I was like, no, I think it's more structural than that. Like, if you have some money and you want to give something to chess, it's far better to like sponsor your own event, such as like St. Louis has done, right? Or Dole sponsoring some tournament in France. It's much easier and better for their image to just do their own thing rather than giving it to an organization like FIDE or US Chess. So it's almost
Mhm.
like these people, these functionaries are missing the point. And at least with Turloff's statement, I don't know how, I don't trust politicians at all, but the statement is actually really true. You're there and your goals should be very modest. I think like you're there for some regulations, get the rating system working, put on a good show for the world championship. And the world championship, if someone comes along with money and wants to sponsor it, then you kind of hand it to them. The same way US Chess handed the US championship to St. Louis, right?
Mhm.
That's what you should be doing.
Well,
But I
there's
think they have bigger dreams, and those confuse the people involved.
I feel like there's a difference between, let's say, getting some attractive sponsors for an event
Uh-huh.
and getting someone to like host the event. So, like in the
Yeah.
St. Louis case, I think it's great that US Chess handed that off to St. Louis because I think they do a really good job with all those
Yeah.
championship events. I feel like they really elevated it since like
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
15 years they've been doing even more.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to something like the World Championship, like I wouldn't expect FIDE to hand it off to some random company or chess club. Rather, I would want them to, let's say, get Google, Apple, these kind of like big companies just as sponsoring the tournament. Like,
Hmm.
if you see
Yeah.
any random tennis event or sporting event, you got tons and tons of sponsors there,
Right.
Nike, Walmart, whoever it may be.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's always been a bit sad that chess hasn't been able to like get these sponsors. Google did sponsor like one of the last World Championship matches, but then they didn't sponsor the next one, right? So that might have been just like a one-time thing. I'm not
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. So 2 points off of that. Like one is like, Do you want FIDE to run the tournament themselves or to partner or to maybe just sort of like partner with both an organizer and like finding sponsors and bringing those parties together? Or do you want FIDE themselves to keep running the event?
I think it's in their best way of doing it is creating the event so that it creates the biggest prize fund possible, both for the candidates up to it and then the event itself. And the problem historically has been it hasn't been that much of a prize fund. And this goes back forever. We talked about Kasparov leaving. Same
Mhm.
situation. FIDE wasn't able to produce a prize fund, and he was like, I can do it better. And then it turned out he couldn't actually do it better. That was a problem.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I think it makes sense for us to have like this bidding process that both FIDE and USCF have for like their like for USCF their national events. Usually an
Mhm.
organizer like bids some like they have a venue, they have this much space, they can have
Yeah.
contact with these hotels. Then US Chess or FIDE they just kind of award the event to these different bids. That definitely opens up the way to corruption. Jesse, you mentioned like the fans want to know about like corruption. I think that's like a big part. It's like FIDE, they can, they choose who gets to run the Olympiad and the World Cup and World Championship. And
Mhm.
sometimes this is a very kind of lucrative event for a certain organizer.
Right.
And they have these like public bids, but who knows what's happening under the table in terms of like getting the bids accepted.
Right.
I don't really have any clear evidence there. I think fans can just look it up, like look up, places they've run the tournaments and kind of like the history beyond that.
And same thing with FIFA doing the World Cup. I mean, a much bigger, bigger, state for it. It's hard to trace where the money goes, but clearly there's money flowing underneath the table.
Yeah, so there was, I think, one story that to me felt like maybe a small form of corruption. Was that I think it was at the maybe the last Olympiad, like 2024. Maybe it was a different event. Maybe it was like a European team championship. But apparently, they were charging some of the teams these kind of exorbitant fees for hotels to house their players for the event. But if the team wanted to book the hotel just on their own, like off of Google, they would have gone in at like a third of the price. And so FIDE was essentially, or whoever was like, organizing that aspect of the event was kind of gouging the teams. Normally, if you have this kind of big group sale, like a bunch of people are going to a tournament, normally you get like a hotel discount for everyone, right?
Better rate,
Like
yeah.
it's usually cheaper than if you were to book it yourself. But here there seems to, it was like they're charging $150 per night where it should have been like $60 per night or something like along those lines. And that to me seems pretty clear, like someone's pocketing that money. Like it's just yeah, not a great look. The other thing, of course, with these elections, I don't know if there's like real evidence out there, but it just seems like it's just an open secret, right? That you have these like secret delegates for all these different federations. The candidates are kind of openly promising stuff to each delegation. They're saying like, if my ticket is elected,
Mhm.
you'll have this much money for your national championship. We'll give you this much money to develop and grow your programs. That stuff seems to be, I guess, above board. I feel like that's kind of some kind of like legal lobbying slash bribery, but
Mhm.
it stands to reason that they would also just be bribing delegates under the table. I mean, it's like it's a secret vote. No one knows who you're voting for, right? So if one of the campaigns promises you a bunch of money, uh, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of delegates out there who take the money and then vote for that candidate. I mean, it just seems to be like the open secret, like that. That's just how it works, and that's how
But
it's worked for the
but
last
as
many elections.
but as Peter Heine was telling us, like it's secret ballot because then if you try to buy the vote, you don't necessarily get the vote. Like the delegate could equally well
Mhm.
take your money and then not vote for you.
Yeah, I feel like there's a way around it. Half now, half if I win, for example, and that kind of incentivizes the
Uh-huh.
delegates to follow
Yeah, that
through on
makes
their
sense.
prompt, right? Like,
That makes sense. Half when I win, yeah.
or whatever it might be. Like, I don't know. And I'm not a politician, right? I'm sure there's much more clever ways to go about it that I'm not thinking of.
Ah, you're halfway there, Coach. That was pretty good. That was a pretty good technique.
So that's a bummer because it definitely just feels like an open secret. Like people like I've been in conversations where people just laugh about it because like that's how it is and no one can really change it and that's just how it goes. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't really. don't think we're really going to have a smoking gun when it comes to this stuff. And even if we did, I don't know how much it would change. The system would still be as it is.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting about the people in US chess and FIDE at the top, especially when I think about these billionaires, is it seems like part of their dream is to belong to the interlocking directorate. And the interlocking directorate is the concept of a way to gain power is, you could start off on your school board and then migrate to these other positions of power based on the connections you make when you're at, say, a board. So if you're a guy like, whether it's Ilyumzhanov or Turlov or any of these other FIDE presidents, I think part of the dream is I'm going to be at the head of this organization and I'm going to have some visibility. And that visibility is going to gain me access to all kinds of other things, maybe other board memberships as well. And when
Mhm.
you're a billionaire and you kind of have the money, it's like, well, I need to do something like that in my life to advance somehow in this game that I've been playing.
Yeah, it's interesting to think like what are Turlov's like main motivations to run FIDE because he seems to be just incredibly like busy guy. Like he manages this like insanely huge investment company.
Mhm.
And yeah, I thought the interview he did with Dina was very interesting on her channel. At least, it's the first time I've heard him speak for more than 30 seconds, right? So it
Mhm.
was cool to kind of hear some of his thoughts. One of the more interesting things I thought he said was that like, his company it sounds like his company could fund the FIDE World Championship, World Cup, Olympiad like 100 times over if they wanted to.
Mhm.
Like it's not that much money to run these events. And it kind of sounded like he was saying like he's like, don't worry about the money. Like if we need to find sponsors, like we'll find them. Which and that's
Yeah.
like I guess that's the benefit of having someone that deals a lot of like potential oligarchs and people of this stature is that
I
like
mean,
they're always going to be able to find the money for these events.
that's kind of what Ilyumshinov brought as well, right? Like
Yeah,
Turlov said basically that he'd be a backstop. Basically, like if we don't find money, I can just provide the money, but we'll find
right.
money. And Ilyumshinov also would personally sponsor events, but you know, they they have access to that to that kind of money personally.
Yeah.
Um, I think the one of the biggest questions with this with chess for a long time has been this question of sponsors, and everyone's always saying, "Oh, we can find sponsors. Oh, if we have good governance, it'll help us bring in sponsors. Oh, if we do things in a regular way, it'll help bring sponsors." Right? A lot of things come down to sponsors, and that's a primary thing they talk about in these election seasons. And then they're always trying to like talk up chess, like we could be so great, which
Mm,
appeals to the people potentially voting in that, right? Like when you
mhm.
hear a politician in the US where we live, right? They'll be saying like, I believe that, our people are great, and if we just unlock them, they can do great things, right? I believe in you. And like if you're the voter, you're like, okay, this person believes in me and my community and so forth, right? They're always saying like, oh, it's such a great like growing segment. Oh, it's such quality market. Like an advertiser would love to reach chess players because they're such great whatevers, right? But what I'm sort of wondering is, it seems like chess has had a bunch of good sponsors over time, but usually just like once or twice, and then the sponsor stops, right? It's
Mhm.
not that no sponsor ever gives chess the time of day or gives it a try, right? Like you get these sponsors, they do try you, and then they go elsewhere. So maybe
Yeah.
chess isn't like this amazing sponsorship opportunity that people just haven't recognized. Like maybe it's not as good as we try
Mhm.
to talk it up as.
I think that's possible. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is like the Kasparov matches with IBM, which seems like that left a bad taste in their mouth, and then like they never kind of touched chess again. I wonder if other sponsors have had similar experiences,
I
like
mean, you can
Google.
look,
Yeah,
Kasparov had Intel when he was doing
right.
the PCA. And as you mentioned, the last World Championship, they had Google, right? So, I mean, these are like top tier companies, right, in the direction of chess, right, like science, math, techie kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then they don't, they give it a try and they don't stick around. So I don't know if if someone's going to be able to come in as FIDE president and change
Right,
chess's
right.
position as a sponsorable sport. Um,
And also, when you just think structurally to other sports, like it's generally there's events or players that companies want to sponsor, but it's not necessarily the organization, the head organization itself that people want to sponsor, right? It's like if you're going to be sponsoring tennis, you're not going to be sponsoring the organization of US Tennis. You're going
well,
to be sponsoring some player or some event or something where you put your logo.
nor is FIDE asking that. I think generally they're looking for event specific sponsorship, not just like FIDE sponsorship, but
Oh, they're definitely looking for money. And US Chess too, they're like, oh, someone's going to give us money. So we have all these projects that we want, women in chess, kids projects,
Mhm.
chess in schools, and they're dreaming of it. And there's just not happening. I think it's structural. I'm trying to say it's structural,
Mhm.
the reason it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, to me, it feels logical that because FIDE for the last while has been run by people adjacent to like Russian politicians and like Russia in
Mhm.
general. I mean, that definitely seems like a bit of a, bomb that sponsors don't really want to touch,
Mhm.
kind of for obvious reasons. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it definitely begs the question as to why USCF hasn't really managed to find like some regular sponsors. Um, well, let me just say it, the EWC, there was a ton of companies, mainly tech, that like you would recognize, like Lenovo, I
Mhm.
think other like gaming companies, and that's like a very kind of natural sponsorship because everyone's like playing on computers and using all this
Right.
like gaming equipment. So you had all these like
Yeah.
computer companies, and that seemed to be just like a very natural link. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, yeah, it's always funny. The candidates are always promising like I'm gonna get real sponsors for chess, and then rarely, rarely happens in the way we would like.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
cool. That was a good catch up. That was a great catch up.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
And
guess. Mhm.
coming up on the horizon, right, is going to be the Olympiad and the actual elections.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do more to cover there. We should probably do like Olympiad preview episode. Maybe
mhm.
next few weeks should be a very interesting one to follow. A lot of good teams. Um,
Yeah. And stories, right? Waiting to find out what board Gukesh is going to play for the
Oh God.
Indian team, right?
Hmm.
And
oh, that's right.
it's
We don't know, huh? They didn't say.
not yet. They've released the teams for the Olympiad, so we could already talk about the Olympiad, but I mean, we can also, wait a week or two. I like to do the preview episodes so they come out sort of right as the event starts, if possible.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some big clashes between the top teams. Trying to guess which team is going to come out on top is interesting. Um, and who's playing and all that. So definitely some topics already. But are you guys thinking to do some live coverage of the Olympiad?
Maybe. Definitely the world championship. Definitely the world championship for sure.
Yeah, Olympiad. I'm just imagining the schedule not be favorable to us, given that it's in
It's
Uzbekistan. So I
yeah,
like
Mm.
that
can't
hurt
imagine
last
it's
year.
gonna
That
start.
hurt last year.
Yeah, at a reasonable time. Yeah, if it does, it would definitely be fun. But I don't. I feel like it won't. Um, so we'll have to see.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite events, so maybe we can come up with something to do around it.
yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, folks. Thanks for
All right.
listening. Catch you
Bye.
next time.